Hello, friends. Are you ready to hear the rest of the tale? Then let us commence. Previously, we left our Ragtags during a tense meeting with the Archfey Morrgylla the Black Swan, in the heart of the Drungamere swamps. Morrgylla and some of her honor guard had dropped out of the sky and saved our heroes from a giant frog hemoth they were battling, so that was good. But then Morrgylla demanded to know who they were and why they were trespassing in her swamp. That was not so good. The Ragtags explained that they were searching for Answer's brother, Jewel, and some other friends, Frobisher and Sloane, and asked if she or anyone in her forces had seen them. She said she hadn't seen a tabaxi, or a harangan, or even a tortle, but perhaps her commander-at-arms, General Ekrelek, had heard something reported from one of the various scouting parties sent out from Torr Nyth. With this, Morrgylla offered everyone refuge and refreshments at the keep, to everyone's surprise. After the Ragtags accepted the hospitality, Morrgylla whisked everyone with a snap of fingers to the courtyard of Torr Nyth. I feel like she was completely showing off her powers there, and I have to say I was definitely impressed. Getting their bearings, the Ragtags took in their instantaneously brand new surroundings. Torr Nyth, it turns out, was an unexpectedly bustling if somewhat run-down fortress full of hobgoblin and goblin guards, as well as other fey servants of various sorts. The heroes were shown to a set of suites in a wing of the keep that featured access to all comforts befitting guests at such a place. It was a little off-putting, although everyone began loosening up as they got ready for dinner. They were even brought a selection of clothes and other finery to choose from and wear to the feast. The suites had a balcony overlooking the sea from atop the cliffs Torr Nyth was built upon. Looking closely over the edge and down the cliff face to the churning water far below, Braze noticed that there was a large grotto, and Varys sent his familiar in the form of a bat to investigate. Taking some time to traverse the vast open yet hidden space, the bat entered the large grotto and communicated what it saw to Varys. The grotto had what appeared to be a sunken series of temples that lay half-submerged, and seemingly abandoned or currently unused. The temples seemed to be as old as the keep, and at the back of the grotto, there was a staircase carved into the stone that led up into Torr Nyth, eventually, one would assume. The large and treacherous-to-get-to discovery seemed like something the heroes couldn't fully investigate in the short time before dinner, so they decided to file that under for later. At this point, the companions noticed that the pixies, Dimplemist and Lilyspeck, were nowhere to be found. Come to think of it, no one had seen or heard from them since the battle with the Froghemoth, and definitely not since the gang had been transported from the swamps to the castle. Assuming, perhaps coldly, that the pixies would be fine on their own, the heroes discussed a strategy and approach for the night's feast, and for what was obviously going to be a social encounter fraught with various traps and tensions. Did they just lay everything out on the table, as it were, and see how Morrgylla took it? Should they be more cagey and look to charm and deceive their way through things? Was lying about anything a good idea? While there really wasn't a solid plan in place, an approach was agreed upon, and that approach was to not lie, but also not reveal the truth either, unless asked directly. It was time for dinner, and the Ragtags, looking much less ragtaggy, were escorted into the large and impressive feast hall where Morrgylla and two others were seated at the large table waiting for them. Morrgylla introduced her two other guests, a rugged and martial-looking hobgoblin who turned out to be the aforementioned General Ekrelek, and a tiny, though just as tough-looking goblin woman named Chieftain Riazard. The companions took their seats and dinner was served. Even before initial pleasantries had been conducted, Varys cast detect thoughts on General Ekrelek as he asked about Jewel and Frobisher and Sloane. While the results were inconclusive, The general was clearly hiding something, and definitely lying when he said he had never seen anyone matching the descriptions of any of the missing friends. Looking to continue just casting spells at the host's dinner table, Varys attempted to cast suggestion on the general, but this time Morrgylla counterspelled it and things moved on, extremely awkwardly, from there. Ever have one of those friends? It wasn't the most uncomfortable feast out there, but I will say, somehow, even asking Morrgylla about her family might have made things less tense than how it all started. Through the tense and strange evening, some valuable intel was gained. For one, that Morrgylla and Val Rillin, whom she continued to refer to as a poor, misunderstood boy, stayed in touch. He had even provided her the strange black-armoured Fey sentries that bolstered the guard at the keep. Though the Black Swan repeated many times, she didn't get involved in the affairs of the domain. She claimed to remain in the swamps and not venture from her realm. In the end, everyone got the impression that she wasn't against Val Rillin in any way and didn't hold any ill will toward him, but that she also wasn't happy about how things had gone, nor with how they were. Eventually, and thankfully, the banquet was over. On the way out, Regal thanked Morrgylla for her hospitality and left her with a well-placed quote from the Bard's Scrolls to see if he could throw her off in any visible way. It definitely had an effect, though the Archfey managed to quickly regain her composure. With that, the heroes were shown back to their suites, where they were encouraged to remain for the rest of the night. I must say, it was a little weird that no one asked any scroll-powered or bard-related questions during the banquet, right? Like Morrgylla, one of the actual figures in the histories, was right there, you know? Hey, who am I to say? Back in their chambers, the heroes gathered around to discuss the night's observations. Varys told everyone that the general was definitely lying about never seeing Jewel or Frobisher or Sloane. Ekrelek also seemed to be covering up more about it, but the information was obscured in some way in his mind. As everyone was discussing what their next moves should be, Devrina returned from her room where she had found one of the Bard's Scrolls on her bed. And, no, obviously it hadn't been there before dinner. Was the Bard somehow in the keep? Did the scroll get teleported in from somewhere? Or was there an even weirder, more fantastic, though totally plausible and cool explanation? And I have no clue. I'm asking you. Do you have any theories? In the scroll, the Bard told of Morrgylla's attempts to care for the eggs she and Val Rillin stole from Gwyn Wyn out of jealousy, and how eventually they hatched. Turns out, this wasn't the joyous event the Black Swan had been envisioning and hoping for when she concocted her treachery. Dozens of Val Rillin's siblings, led by his sister Viltor, also known as the Recluse, quickly saw that Morrgylla was not their real mother, and, in a horrific chorus, all demanded to know where she was. In a guilt-mad panic, Morrgylla lied to the children, telling them that they had been abandoned by their mother and brother. Flying into a vengeful frenzy and energized by the poison words of the trickster Viltor, the siblings roiled and raged across the land, on a betrayal-fueled collision course with Gwyn Wyn and Val Rillin. That family just gets twistier and more messed up, doesn't it? Gotta say, it's pretty hard to keep any of the sympathy for Morrgylla that built up over dinner after that, right? After all the doom and gloom, the scroll ended on a more positive note. While nursing a heavy heart, Morrgylla found that one of the eggs from the brood hadn't hatched and was still nestled in the web. Seeing it as a painful reminder of her deceit, Morrgylla cast the egg away, but it was soon found by a kind spider who cared for it as her own. What became of the egg is apparently a tale for another time. Wouldn't you know it? I guess we'll probably never know what happened to the egg or who hatched out of it. I'm so invested in this. As everyone was standing about, Dimplemist and Lilyspeck appeared out of thin air, letting everyone know that they had found the book. If you've forgotten, the two pixies were agents of the Garda, the secret police in Sylvania. So, they left all their pixie comrades and pixie friends in the Garda. Friends, with their own backstories and missions and quests to give that would be like on the side of the main things everyone is doing. So, like a proper quest, but, you know, on the side. Anyway, so the Pixies, they had joined up with the Ragtags on a mission to find the book, the Liber Lunae Infinitus, which had been taken by Jewel from the Law Spire in Sylvania near the start of all this. Turns out, the book was in a treasury down in the various basements under Torr Nyth, past a dungeon or two and whatnot. With the book being here, it made Jewel's disappearance or absence or whatever even more suspicious, as well as most urgent indeed. So, as night deepened and darkened, everyone just had to figure out how to leave their suites and get down into the depths of the keep to investigate things further. At this point, I think the Ragtags are going to have a real think about what to do next, so why don't we take a break and check back in with them again after that? Shall we?